Hello and welcome to this week. This week is a funny one for me because Luke is here joining us. Luke Gordon, you've been a regular on our podcast over the years. And whenever you come, we always get a lot of good feedback. And I think one of the gifts you have is a lot of men relate to you because you're willing to talk about what's on your mind. And I think it's really helpful. But what is entertaining to me is I invited Luke on today. I said, hey, you want to jump on the podcast with me? But he actually has no idea what we're talking about. So what you're going to get today is really just an authentic discussion. And Luke just knows he's being interviewed and he's here. So
We should make it two topics today, by the way. We
two
should make it
topics.
two topics. The one where you say the person, the ADHD, where you say no to everything, like no, no, no.
Mm,
Because I think that would be really useful to talk about sometime. I mean,
You
you're
know
the
what?
boss. It's your podcast.
Okay. So here we go. Like we're going to reroute live.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell everybody what happened 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So Luke and I both work in the same office. And he popped into my office at the end of his workday. I was about done and I said, hey, do you want to record a podcast episode with me? And we've been talking about you coming on our podcast now. How many, like 2 months of us going, you're going to come on, you're going to come on. And we've probably scheduled it a handful of times and we just keep not doing it. But I said to you, I said, hey, do you want to record a podcast? And I looked at you and what I saw is your face fall and your shoulders fall. And then what did you say to me?
Shoot, I'm trying to remember what I said.
I don't
I
remember
said,
either. That's why I asked.
by the way, for those of you who don't know what time it is, because it's not like this is live, it's the end of the day, right? I'm ready to go home, ready to go see the kids. When Alana asked that to me, I'm like, I'd really like to be boundaried and stick to my plan, which is I'm done with work now. I'm going to go be with my family. And yet we've asked a lot of times. So I'm having this battle inside of my head, and Alana is getting it. She's hearing parts of it. Because one thing you said is I said, no, 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 not in those words. No, no, no is what you heard. And on the fourth one, it was a yes. The fourth time it was a yes, but it was all just kind of like out loud as we went through it.
Well, and here's why we're bringing this up. Because if you might be listening, you're like, okay, what's the point of this? Luke has ADHD. And the majority of clients I work with who have sexual addiction, the majority of them have ADHD. And there's something called demand avoidance that I see often that comes often in conjunction with ADHD that is that automatic saying no to things.
Mhm, mhm.
And when I first learned that this came with ADHD, it made so much sense to me because the amount of times that I've known you and I've asked you some question, will you listen to this? Will you read this? Will you come and do this? Even if you don't say no, I read your body and I see couples do this all the time. They're reading each other's body language, whether they recognize it or not. And so I don't even think you verbally said no 3 or 4 times, but I watched your body language. And so my brain registered, no, 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 no. So I want to talk about this piece that shows up for you of this almost automatic, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I
what you do with that.
and I think a little bit of the science behind it. I have an avoidant attachment in certain ways. And so ADHD, it manifests in like it's an avoidance like to tasks, like requests, demands, because there's a lot of in that moment, a lot of feelings like overwhelm. So I'm feeling very unpleasant when Alana makes that request, and she reads it all over my body. And inside, I feel dysregulated, like it's unmanageable, like all the things that are coming up for me. So a lot of sensory stuff, a lot of dysregulation. And if we think about like the executive functioning part of the brain, that's the part that I struggle with, the frontal cortex, the executive thinking. So when Alana gets something thrown at her, she's like problem solving it right away. She's like a proactive approach to it. Like, hey, how could I accomplish this? And me, it's there's a level of overwhelm. But because I value Alana, what she's got in this, and this hasn't always been the case, what I value Alana is I'm like, I do want to be there, but also with past and history, there's a lot of things tied up in this. Anyway, I just wanted to share a little about the ADHD piece.
Well, yeah, and demand avoidance is a tendency to avoid everyday demands. It's common of ADHD and autism, but in its like more extreme form, they actually have a term for it called pathological demand avoidance or PDA. But we get it in these everyday experiences. And I think this is a really important thing to understand when we are trying to heal from betrayal trauma and sexual addiction. Because if we have these other elements at play, like the rejection sensitivity that comes with ADHD, the demand avoidance, if these are coming to play as a betrayed partner, if I'm not aware that this is happening, I will find myself taking everything
Yeah.
personal.
Mhm.
So in that moment just now, where I asked you to do it, I made that invitation again, and then I read all over your body, you don't want to do it.
3 no's.
Instantly,
3
yeah,
no's.
instantly my brain's like, okay, never mind. Never mind. We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And by this time, you had already worked through internally. Yes, the initial reaction is a no, but then you slow down the process, you work through it, and you get to this place of then choosing, okay, do I want to go home? Do I need to rest? Or do I want to do this? So, yes, there's this initial slam on the brakes, but then you sit there at the light, you think it through and make your decision. But by that time, I had already switched gears and I was like, never mind. I shouldn't have asked, or I don't want to ask, or you already said no. And now I've rerouted. In this circumstance, you went, hold on. That was demand avoidance. I say no automatically. Give me a minute. Let me make this choice. And it made me stop and go, oh, hold on. You were like, let me make decisions for myself. Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
I said, I'm not gonna get it the exact way, but it's like, "Hold on, you asked me. I would like to make a decision for myself. Don't take it back away from me. I'd like to choose." Some version of that.
And that's funny too, because even the way I just described it was a little snarky. And the way you just described it actually is what happened. So you had a pretty healthy response. And I was a little bit already pulled back from that. And I missed that. And we share this to show like how many opportunities, I mean, that's a terrible word, but opportunities to miss each
Yeah,
other here.
for
And this
sure.
is for someone where I'm not highly activated and constantly going through the lens of Luke's out to get me, Luke's out to get me, which I was when I was in the thick of my betrayal. And so if you're going through this and you have this element at play and you're trying to heal from betrayal, it can get really messy really fast.
Yeah. Hey, Alana, is it okay if I spend a little bit of time talking about the cause of the demand avoidance? Because what I'm thinking about is the partner in healing, is what they might notice if they, like, had the information about what demand avoidance is. Can I share a couple things that I've experienced?
Yes, but can I give a quick disclaimer first?
Yeah. Yeah,
We're not excusing any of this behavior.
that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, good.
That's what I
Because
was
that's where I wanted to go is
uh-huh.
even as I was talking earlier, I'm like, hold on, I got to stop myself
Mm,
and explain that just because this is happening doesn't mean that you get a free pass to always just say no. And I should just instantly go like, oh, he gets to do whatever he wants without having an impact.
absolutely. Yeah, because at least to be aware of what they're experiencing, but there still is their responsibility inside that to be relational, right? So nobody gets a pass here, but I would want the person who's in a relationship with a person that has ADHD that experienced that demand avoidance of knowing what they experience, not so you can give them a pass or give them like a hug, as much as it just being aware of what they need to work through to be relational. Alana, do you have any comments on that before I share some of it?
That I just actually was gonna say, can you slow that down and go more in depth of what's happening within you? Or if there is somebody who has problematic sexual behavior and ADHD and does this, what do they do with that?
Yeah. So let's just set the stage here. So end of the day, just got done with a group, clients throughout the day, just a bunch of stuff going on. So it's Monday, right? I'm not necessarily completely inside of my window of tolerance at the end of the day. There's some anxiety, some overwhelm, and that's easy for me to lead to some avoidance when Alana makes a request. There's a task here associated with it that is going to need normal patterns of avoidance in that. So what I'm experiencing inside my brain is in that emotional dysregulation, I have difficulty like organizing and prioritizing and initiating like tasks. So that simple demand that Alana gave, which is, hey, can you do this? I'm like, boom, I'm like, oh my gosh. So still my responsibility, not Alana's. This is mine. So she doesn't need to cater that to me. She doesn't need to do anything with that. That's my responsibility. But it triggers that rejection sensitivity piece that we're touching on. So for me, I have that fear of failure and that like criticism. So like, okay, why am I going to do this? And I really have to slow it down for myself in that moment. Okay, if you say yes to Alana, why are you saying it? Are you saying it to avoid uncomfortable conversations? Are you doing it to appease her? Are you doing it from a values place of doing what you said you were going to do? What is it? And really checking that levels of the sensitivity I have around what if I don't do it? Or what if I do it? And the other piece of this is like sensory overload. Like in that moment, there's task related stimuli feels so overwhelming unless it's my task. Oh my gosh, I just feel bad for Alana. I'm not shaming myself, by the way. But if it's a task coming out of another place, like it's stimuli that's overwhelming if I'm in a dysregulated spot. So, in really, a lot of this has to do with like levels of dopamine. An ADHD brain seeks activities that are going to give me that hit, especially like towards that. So this experience isn't necessarily maybe that at that moment. So that can often be like trigger something else inside of me. So I just wanted to share a little bit what happens inside my brain. And I feel like I need to say, Alana, that's a lot of information that would lead to compassion for partner, but I don't want to take away the accountability because what I do in that moment is
Yeah,
go,
like what is the responsibility of you in that moment? Yes, you have this rejection sensitivity. Yes, you have ADHD. Yes, that comes with this demand avoidance. Like all of these things are part of a diagnosed condition, but what is your responsibility to do with that?
my responsibility is to stop, notice, and create dialogue around what I'm experiencing and what I'm going to do that is transparent, that has some clarity, right? And I didn't really do that well in some of this. Some of it I did well with, and some of it I didn't, which is wait, hold on. It's the end of the day. I'm feeling a little bit tired. I want to help. And you know why I don't say that stuff? It's because I'm scared of what I'll see on her face if I start voicing some emotions. But that's my responsibility to still be real with myself and still be able to be open and not putting that on her and just communicate it. So my responsibility is those are my emotions, not hers, and to slow down and be able to talk about them and be open with them. And that's relational. That's the relational piece of it and the integrity portion of it.
That's really helpful. And I appreciate that. And I love that each person is taking ownership and responsibility for their feelings. And I think about, for me, I won't say for all partners, but just some dynamics that we have had. As you were talking and you were saying, we do what I want to do. I was like, we do because you and I recorded a podcast together a week ago. And guess whose podcast we recorded?
Shame.
Yours. We
Yeah.
did your podcast when I've been the one asking for however long
Yeah.
and recognizing that I was in a place of, oh, at least he's recording with me. Cool. This is good because it's a topic I wanted to talk about, which we did, but it went out on your podcast.
Mhm.
And so I have to still own for me of, okay, what is important to me to have you come on the podcast and get to the episode that's going to come next after this because we switched to this, but this is good because this is real time. But I still have to own for me what's important to me and then speak up for that.
Mhm.
And so this was important to me to have you come on the podcast to follow through with that. Not going to force you to be here. You still have the choice to do that. But some of my default patterns in the past have been just kind of like, oh, if he doesn't make it happen, I've asked him if he doesn't make it happen, then whatever, it's just not going to happen. Almost this like give up. And so I have to own of, no, I value this. It's important to me. And I will speak up for what I want. And then I'm going to let that go of what he chooses to do. But even in our interaction today, there was this, I made the offer. He wasn't overly excited initially. There was this give up. And then when you came back and said, hold on, I realize what's happening for me. Actually, I do choose to do this. I had this little mini internal battle going, do I want to now do
I
this?
know, right?
And then I had to go, no, I actually really do. I value this. So I am going to step into what I value and I'm going to trust that he did his own work to be able to show up and do this.
Mm.
And if you didn't do your own work and you resented me later for it, which you could, those are feelings
Never
and
been
on
down that
you.
road before.
Yeah. But that would be your feelings and your responsibility. So there's this healthy dynamic where each of us are allowing ourselves to experience and feel our own feelings, and we're allowing the other person to feel and experience their own feelings, and we're not owning each other's experience.
Yeah.
We're understanding the impact, we're seeing the impact, we're having empathy for the impact, but we're not taking on each other's feelings.
I just think it's cool the amount of fighting for values that was done. The amount of fighting for healthy, like, it was just it's cool. Yeah, I just think it's awesome. By the way,
Can you explain what you mean fighting for values? Because I know some people will hear that and think fighting like contention, but I
yeah,
know that's not what you mean.
I know, and thanks for calling that out. Oh my gosh, this might not make any sense to everybody. ADHD brain, I love it. Okay, there's this interview that's done, just a clip of Keanu Reeves, and he talks about love, and he's like, "Have you ever been in love and you've had to fight for love? Have you ever loved, you fought for love?" He's like, you fight, like, that's intimacy, that's connection. If you have it, you have to fight for it. It doesn't come easy." And
Mm,
I was thinking about what we cared about. We cared about ourselves, not in a selfish way. We cared about self being healthy, and we cared about what we said we were going to do for each other, showing up in that experience. And that was a fight, not a fight as in conflict, a fight. What's the right word, Alana?
I think you said it before, honoring our values.
Yeah. And it didn't come easy. It didn't come effortlessly. So I'm trying to find a word to demonstrate the effort.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it doesn't come easy.
And can
I do.
I
Yeah.
give a word instead of, I don't love the word, but what I'm hearing is like this higher level of engagement,
Mm.
this higher level of commitment to be able to sit with discomfort and work through the hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Sit with it and seeing and it's worth it. I guess that's what I want to say is it's worth it. Yeah. And I'm sorry about the podcast that we recorded one for me and not for you. So
Well, in your defense, you did offer it to be released on both of our podcasts at the same time, but it didn't work out with Amy and I's
didn't work out that
schedule.
way.
So it's totally fine. And I love this. I love that it gives a real opportunity for live back and forth action. Because sometimes there's this idea of Luke and I, we come on these podcasts and it's like, let us talk as professionals and tell you what healing looks like and show you all the ways that we are just healed and talk about like we're human. You have ADHD, which comes with some real perks and some real challenges.
Mhm.
I am human and I have my own different version of ADHD. I have my betrayal that still gets activated. I still have my forms of rejection that get activated because we're human. And so here we are, each navigating these human experiences.
I love
And
that.
we're able to show up and say, okay, let's let you look in a little bit and see how we navigate this.
Yeah. Yeah. So just in circling back to it. So I don't know. I think my brain, I'm still rewiring my brain, still trying harder to be relational in my life. And one thing I just recognize is that my knee jerk response often to the people that I care about that matter to me is no. And my no doesn't actually mean no. It means I'm thinking and what I'm struggling, I'm battling. So it's important for me to communicate that and to know this about myself and to be able to say, have intimate conversations with somebody around that. Of let me tell you what I experienced. Because if you're engaging with me intimately, my typically knee jerk response to like everything, ask me if I want chocolate ice cream is no. Even though I love it, is because this is my experience. It's important to know that about ourselves to communicate that to somebody else.
Do you know, I remember the first time that I talked to you about demand avoidance with ADHD. You were like, "Are you kidding me? That is so my experience."
Okay.
And I remember it so much because my brain went, "Man, if he could figure this out about himself, that would be huge." And does that mean that the demand avoidance goes away? No. But once you got that awareness, then you could start learning about yourself and slowing that process down. And that to me, that's what healing looks like.
I'll take the good part, the really good part, besides connection with you, is I see it in my youngest child. Like, I'm gonna get emotional talking about this, but he experiences ADHD. And he's always like, "Hey, dude, can you like take out the trash? Or can you, I don't know, can you walk over here? Like anything." And he's like, it's like demand avoidance. And I can see that inside of him, that battle, that struggle. And then, yeah, he does, he comes to it. But it's important for me as a father to know his experience. And I'm grateful that I can learn a little bit about him through my own experience.
What
Um,
was the emotion that came up with that?
I think there's a lot of emotion around gratefulness for information that hits another level that turns into clarity. So it'll allow for connection with other people. Because if I can't have clarity about my experience, it tends to create disconnection with other people. So if I gain some clarity, I have hope, like to go, oh, okay, let's try again. So that was me wanting to connect with my son. Like I can do this because my youngest, because of that demand avoidance, he doesn't just get in line. He doesn't just do what dad says. And that for me, I'm like, "You're supposed to. I'm the boss." That's like my knee-jerk family of origin stuff. And so now I feel where I maybe felt powerless or hopeless, like, "What do I do with this in this relationship?" That creates some hope. Yeah.
Yeah. And healing
Mm,
in your relationship with him,
yeah.
which will go perfectly into when I have you next time, because I'm going to interview you specifically on that of using some of the tools that we're learning in recovery with your kids and how we can do that and what that can look like. Well, Luke, thank you for
Yeah.
your vulnerability and coming on and sharing real with all of our listeners. And for our listeners, we're so not perfect. We're so not like growth and healing is a lifelong journey. And while we are not where we were years ago, we are still humans navigating this planet Earth and navigating relationships, and relationships take work, all of them. So,
Worth it.
I know. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again for coming. Thank you to our listeners.
Yeah.
And as always, thanks for hanging out with us this week. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. At Choose Recovery, we do a lot of intensives, but there is one in particular that I am so excited about. It is the Rebuilding Us Intensive. And this is for couples who have been through betrayal, but have put in a lot of work and are ready to dive into some deeper emotional work. But they feel like there's something missing, that they need that extra support to take their relationship to the next level. So, this intensive is going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, March 26th to 29th. So, it'll be a gorgeous time of year. Depending on where you're at in the world, come get some sunshine. What we'll be doing is we'll be using tools from emotionally focused therapy, doing the Hold Me Tight workshop, intermixed with lots of experiential activities, things like drum making and rappelling and different activities that are going to allow you an opportunity to really see each other, work together, and come and build something brand new. Because that's what we're doing here is we're not trying to go back to the way the relationship was. We're not trying to go back to old patterns. No, we're trying to break those patterns that weren't working and do something different and get that deeper level of intimacy. So if that's something that you would like in your relationship, you can go to chooserecoveryservices.com. Under intensives, you'll see the intensives for the whole year, but this one again is the Rebuilding Us intensive. And you can come hang out with myself and Hallie Roderick, Morgan Ellsworth, and Luke Gordon. It will be a small, intimate group, so you will get lots of one-on-one support along with being able to connect with others who are on the journey with you.
Hi guys, it's Laura with Choose Recovery Services. I wanted to let you know about a course we have coming up, a Boundaries Bootcamp. If you've been walking this journey for any length of time, surely you've heard the term boundaries, and you likely have thoughts, questions, or even strong feelings about that word. Questions like, what are boundaries? Why don't my boundaries work? How do I set healthy boundaries? Or why does my partner get to set boundaries that control me? And many others may be at the forefront of your mind. Boundary work is one of the most important skills you can learn, not only to survive the betrayal, but to regain sure footing and confidently live beyond it in solid recovery and healing. This Boundaries Boot Camp is a 6-week course aimed at answering the most pressing questions about boundaries and helping you step out of a place of survival and into a place of thriving, both individually and relationally. There are 2 groups that run concurrently, one for betrayed partners and one for partners seeking recovery. The answer for both is setting healthy boundaries, but the approach is different. Check out the link in the show notes or visit chooserecoveryservices.com for more information.